Erotic store employees, what are the best excuses you've heard when it came to someone buying a toy? One of my first jobs was at a video store, VHS rental store, that had an adult section. As I was like 16 at the time, I was not allowed to be in that section to restock, but I could rent them out. I was also tasked with calling up customers that had overdue tapes. Now, normally this was fine. If you got an answering machine, you would just say you have an adult title that is overdue. Occasionally, you would get a woman, presumably a wife or girlfriend, and the name on the account was male. Do you just try the so-and-so has an overdue tape and hope she doesn't press for details? There was one time, however, where I did get the customer in question. Ahem. Hello, customer. I'm just calling to remind you that you have 5 adult titles that are now overdue.
Yeah, which ones?
The adult titles that you rented on date.
No. What are they?
Looking at the list on the screen, there was definitely a theme. I don't remember the titles, so I will simulate them for you. Well, sir, it's showing that you have Butt Intruder 4, Backdoor Vixens, Big Butt Stuff Booties, Mad for Butt Stuff 7, and Stairway to Buttholes.
All right. How much more a day is it to keep them?
It's, whatever amount a day.
Okay.
Goodbye. And I hung up. I then turned to my slightly older female coworker who was staring at me, caught between shock and laughter. Why did you read out the titles? He asked me to. Now I'm starting to laugh. We would laugh about that phone call for a long time after. I tend to be a fairly broad-minded guy, and was so even then while still being rather young. But there was something about the combination of being on the phone with the guy, the titles, and my coworker staring at me while I recited them that was simultaneously embarrassing and hilarious. Story 2. Friend and I went to the local erotic goods store to get tons of rubbers and individual lube pods to help fill an adult piñata. I was pretty shy and vanilla, so it was already a struggle for me to be in there and not blush. While shopping, I mentioned to my buddy I needed a new bong that I was planning to buy. Friend asked me how big, and I put up my hands and said, oh, like 14 inches or so. Right then, a large bearded man who worked there approached and asked,
Oh, hey cutie, you looking to get a new toy? I can definitely help you find something that size.
I turned beet red instantly and started stammering, finally explaining that I was talking about something else. I don't think he believed me because he tipped my friend a wink and said,
Okay, sweetie, you know where we are if you change your mind.
I mean, OP, I gotta say, if you're in an adult store saying stuff like that, yeah, I don't think he believed you. I don't know if I would. Story 3. I made a clerk spit her coffee years ago. I was in the shop and already a little uncomfortable enough, as being a female alone in an adult store sometimes attracts the wrong attention, as it did this day. A man saw me looking at various items and decided to sidle up to me. Each display I looked at, he moved to join me, creeping closer and closer, until our coats were touching and I could feel his breath on my neck. Exasperated, I started moving to a display at the front of the store, hoping the female clerk would notice my creeper, who was by then playing pocket pool, and tell him to get lost. No such luck. Finally, maxed out on the skeeve meter, I walked over to the strap-ons, and this really got his attention, judging by the increased effort he put into getting the old 9-ball in the side pocket. So I picked up the largest fake dong they have, and it was pretty much the size of my arm, at least 12 to 13 inches long and as big around, ending with a closed fist. With my best I'm dumb, young, and female perky voice, I whirled around to him and said, Excuse me, can I ask your opinion on something? Creeper perked up. I'm sure he thought he was not only going to pick me up, but my imaginary girlfriend as well.
Sure.
My little man toy says he can't feel it when I bang him. Would you say this is big enough?
I didn't even get to finish. Creeper left a dust train behind him in his hasty exit, and the clerk spat her coffee all over the counter, and she just started howling. I can't imagine many successful pickup attempts have actually occurred at adult stores. So if you're ever finding yourself, following someone around in one of them, maybe consider don't. Or if you want to express interest, try directly, and if they say no, back the hell off. Following them around and playing pocket pool with yourself, yeah, that's creeper behavior. Don't do that. Story 4. I work in an adult store. I have for 6-ish years now. This happened maybe 3 to 5 months ago. A middle-aged woman, blonde, very attractive, huge breasts, asks me to help her try on some lingerie. Not that out of the ordinary. Sometimes corsets are hard to get on, lots of lace work on some of them. But no, it was just a nightie type thing. Sheer black, and she just wanted to make sure it would fit her chest because of her aforementioned large breasts. We're not in the dressing room, we're at the counter. She lifts her top, bra included, and asks me to get her breasts into the bust of the nightie. I obliged. She bought it and left me a $1 tip and said something to the effect of overworked, underappreciated, and left. I have many stories, but this is the most recent and most awesome that was completely out of nowhere. Story 5. Early 2000s, I worked in a small local bookstore, not an adult store. An older man comes up to the counter and mumbles that he's looking for Christian something. I couldn't make out his words, but told him where the religion section was. 2 minutes later, he's back to the counter. I'm looking for the Christian adult content. Before I could even think to tell him that we don't sell adult material, I blurred out, what exactly is that? Like regular content, but they're married or something? It's adult content, but Christian. I don't think such a thing exists. Yes, it does. I read about it, okay? Drudge Report. I bet you're hiding it behind the counter. And he starts to try to come behind the counter to see for himself. Sir, you can't come back here. I'm not hiding secret Christian content back here. Yeah, okay, good. This was just a test. Adult content is a sin anyway. And he makes for the exit. Ah, dude, you really fooled God with that one. Definitely hid your intentions real well. No one knew. Story 6. I was the guy doing the buying. My friend and I are big into firearms, and he recently got a bolt-action rifle with no scope. I hinted that I would get him a scope for his birthday in 2 weeks. Once I get the scope, I see I can reseal the box. I head over to my local adult shop with the box and say without hesitation, I need the cheapest fake dong you can fit in this box, preferably double-sided. Both of the employees took it professionally, but were trying to hold back their laughter. They asked why out of curiosity and said it's for a friend's birthday. Part of me thinks they didn't believe it. Best $20 gag gift I ever bought, though. Story 7. Okay, so years ago, a friend and I went into a shop to get the biggest fake dong we could find. We were 2 dudes around 18, 19. So we're in the shop and we're critically assessing the fake dong selection. The guy behind the counter comes over and is super helpful. We explain we're looking for the largest, floppiest, most absurd rubber or silicone fake dong they had available, but it had to be under $75. Now, I imagine it's probably standard practice to not pry too deeply into why anyone is shopping for a toy unless you're trying to be helpful. Clearly, he needed to know because we kept saying it really needs to flop and bounce, like this thing needs to spring up in response to hitting something. So eventually he asks, okay, so what exactly are you trying to accomplish with this toy? That might help me find the right, fit for you. He commented with a sly wink to both of us. Suddenly, it hits us. It didn't occur to us until then how it looked. Oh, no, we're not buying this for us to use on one another. We're going to tie it on a rope, throw it over a tree, hide in the bushes and wait for cars to drive out of / by that uptight fire and brimstone church that protests downtown all the time, drop it on their windshields, and then pull it back up into the tree after they freak out. The guy loses it laughing about this, and he ends up chipping in some cash to make sure we can get the biggest rubber dong we can find, with a good old set of balls too to help ensure the rope stays secure. Those fundamentalist jerks lost their crap over the fake dong on their windshields. That was 14 years ago. That friend ended up becoming my brother-in-law. So now whenever we want to mess with someone, we just tell them, oh yeah, we go way back. We've even bought a fake dong together. Story 8. I used to work at an adult store back when VHSs were still sold, and watched the pretty rapid transition to DVD only. As DVD took over, male gay content was the last to really move over. I'm not sure if it was a factor of the studios or the businesses, since VHS was cheaper to buy, so our margins were bigger with it, and the male content tended to move in lower quantities. I worked third shift, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., so I got to see a lot of the late night people. Not so much large groups really, mostly gay men looking for hookups in the arcade room in the back. We had a janitor clean in the morning. I wouldn't have been there if they didn't. We did have the occasional glory hole or backroom group thing happen. They were few and far between, but they were a welcome treat. Technically, I wasn't supposed to allow that, but I got paid $9 an hour, so yeah, I had my fun. I also got into the local kink scene through the people I met doing the glory holes, so I got a nice introduction to that as well. The store was on a college campus, so we would get younger girls coming in to look, obviously embarrassed. Despite being a guy, I could usually get them to open up a little and give me an idea of what she was looking for. I was often the adult store version of a bartender, reassuring them that all this was normal, listening to their stories if needed, and generally helping them feel comfortable with choosing something that was right for their needs. We would also get groups of drunkish girls coming in, and they were always a treat. Having a giggling group of girls running around in an adult store is the adult equivalent of a child watching a litter of kittens learn to pounce. I'll never forget the night I got to demonstrate several vibes, including the rabbit as seen on Sex and the City, to a group of 7-ish drunk ladies. We had male toys that were lifelike molds of adult video stars' orifices, just like a legless, torso-less waist, kind of horrifying actually. We had an older box that was really beat up, so I took out the mold and demonstrated how several vibes worked. The oohs and ahs of the girls and their anime eyes was hilarious, especially when they got to the rabbit and saw up close how it worked. Literally sold all of them left in the store to them, and they all bought a different lube so they could test each one and find out which they liked the best. And yes, I got phone numbers. Only one turned out to go anywhere though. The rest were all basically, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was drunk and shouldn't have given you my number." I reassured them that there were no hard feelings, and we even talked again when they came back for whatever new toy they wanted. I got asked out by a hot doctor. Apparently, wearing my grandfather's wedding band on my right finger was code for married but gay and looking. I turned him down but made it clear I was super flattered, just not gay, sadly. Middle Eastern/Asian men would come in and rent like 6, the max, videos every few nights. I finally asked what was up with all this, especially since they were renting predominantly straight or lesbian content and then one gay male one. They were copying these to DVD and ripping the videos to burn onto more DVDs to smuggle back to Iran, India, South Asia, since adult content was taboo in those areas. Apparently, that was their entire job. Not gonna lie, I was tempted to ask how to get in on it, but looking back now, I wonder if any of this financed terrorism and if I dodged a huge bullet. The fun times came to a halt when I got robbed at gunpoint. The robber was even a regular customer, and I pulled his card for the police when they got there. The hilarious thing was he didn't get much money, but the 6 VHS movies he stole put him into a larger theft category and increased the minimum by like 5 years, I think. Dude wound up pleading and I never had to testify. Sentenced to 10 years if I recall correctly, although I don't know how much he actually did. After that, being alone overnight, I started getting bad panic attacks. I finally had to quit. Looking back, I probably had a case for workers' comp at the least. Not something I thought of at the time. That's about it. Hope y'all enjoyed the read. I feel like terrorist organizations have better ways to finance their goings-on. This was probably just some small to medium type business stuff. Definitely sounds like OP got their fair share of stories from this job though, so even though they had to quit, sounds like it worked out well for them. Except for the getting robbed at gunpoint thing, that's pretty bad. Story 9. I worked at 2 different adult shops many moons ago. My favorite people were the professionals. They basically knew generally what they wanted and weren't shy to talk. At one of the shops I worked at, we had a selection of toys, DVDs, and as I called them, Jack Shacks. These are stalls where there's a video screen. You pay money for however long you wish to watch whatever selection of movies. Our store was purchased by new owners. In the Jack Shacks, we had metal panels to prevent glory holes. New owners decided to take them down because they actually wanted glory holes. It was always sucky, when it was your turn to monitor it back there and make change for people. One winter, the heating broke down and we were without heat for 1 full day while waiting for the heating repair people. Owners made us stay open. The thermostat reader showed it was about 36 Fahrenheit in there. Dudes were still going into the damn Jack Shacks even though it was freezing cold. I swear that I should have had complimentary ice picks instead of baby wipes in the stalls that day. Story 10. When I worked at an adult boutique, we had some pervs and we had some regulars. My favorite customers came in once. They were a married couple on their 20-something anniversary. They specified they had a great intimate life, but they wanted to try something new. I said, hey, if we can take that great banging and elevate it to mind-blowing every time, we've done our job. They had some specifics. No vibrations, she didn't like it, no serious bondage, etc. So I walked them around the store and showed them the stuff we had that didn't vibrate or that worked perfectly well without using that feature. I explained how to use them all safely and consensually. I also shared some stories of my experiences in an SFW format. I put them at ease and they made me feel all warm and happy. They had so much love and consideration for each other that everything I said was a glance away from total acceptance or nothing. Story 11. I was working at an adult store a few years back. The hours were good and I am very good at selling stuff, so the pay was very good. As a woman working there, I encountered lots of weird men that would say and do weird things in front of me while picking DVDs. One Indian guy asked me for a dong extension, and then when he was leaving and had already bought his thing, he said to me, "You're a bad girl, aren't ya?" and tried to slap me across the face. I knew where the camera was pointing, so I knew I had gotten him on camera. The next time he came in, I alerted the manager and he called the cops. Had him arrested for trying to assault an employee. Not sure how that ended. Another really fat man would go in every Thursday and try to lean really close to me on our glass tables. He would then start describing his most recent adult movie he had watched to me while making weird finger movements on the table towards me. I hated that guy. Even after I got a better job and left the adult shop, he would ask, "Where did the other girl go?" We once got our banging doll / body parts in the mail, and after we unboxed a life-sized bang doll and started putting her on display, an Asian guy shows up 20 minutes after. He immediately bought the doll for $3,000. He also bought some sexy clothes, shoes, and a costume for the doll. Had his buddy help him load his new blonde doll into his car. Fastest sell of my life. And last one, a white, super tall man walked in and asked me, "Where are your super small pocket kitties?" I said, "Right over there." I thought he meant something tight. He comes back and says, "Is this the smallest one you have?" I said, "Yes." Then he says, I'm looking for something way smaller than this, making a hand gesture the size of a quarter. He asks me for a smaller pocket kitty. Then he says he has a very super small, tiny micro dong. This guy was like 7 feet tall. So after looking everywhere and not finding anything that small, he was frustrated and says, oh, well, I've been let down before. So I see a fake butt, I rip off the tester from the box that's the size of a quarter and give it to him. I say, just take it, buddy. He exclaimed, perfect, and left all happy. I don't think height equates to dong size, does it? I haven't really looked into it, to be honest, but I feel like it probably doesn't. Or if it does, not a whole lot. So people like that guy must just disappoint a lot of people, but that's not even their fault. It's definitely the other people who have these expectations that are unrealistic or just fantastical, really. Story 12. I was a customer who asked for a blindfold. The ones at Walmart are too cheap and flimsy. I thought I could get a more durable one at the adult shop. The cashier didn't believe me when I told her this and brought out the most uncomfortable looking leather spiky blindfold. I explained to her that I really actually just wanted to go to sleep without the sun waking me. Came back with a durable yet soft silk double-stitched blindfold. Still have it, and I highly recommend going to adult shops for good sleep. Story 13. I worked at an adult bookstore while I was in college. Lucky me, it was one with a video arcade. Thankfully, I never had to clean it. Watched a lot of people on the down low. I usually worked nights and I had covered a daytime shift for a coworker. I was at the register with my other employee, we never worked alone, and my 2 supervisors. A man about in his 70s came up to the register with a pocket kitty. He said to me, "The only reason I'm buying this is because I can't afford something like you." I just stood there deer-eyed. My bosses just chuckled. Chose to stay at nights after that. Few more. Ran into my 4th grade PE teacher. He never returned. Had a couple bring their baby in and couldn't understand why they weren't allowed to. And another man came in for animal content. Had to let him know that that was illegal. Oh, also found hard drugs outside and had to convince the sheriff that it wasn't mine. Story 14. Back in the early 90s, I worked at a video store. We had a huge collection of movies. Everything from new releases to silent films. We also had a huge adult section. If it was legal, we carried it. Funniest to me, a gay guy came in and rented a male adult video, and it was called Foxhole. We kept the cassettes in the back room for everything, and there was an adult film next to it called Foxholes, and it was regular stuff. The guy returned it laughing and said, "Yeah, my roommate woke me up and asked me if there was anything I wanted to tell him." I was 18 working in suburbia, and I was surprised how many gay customers there were. This one guy was gorgeous. Great hair, great skin, smelled nice, and great dresser. And the new counter girls would fawn over him. Until he rented a gay movie. This thread was a spicy one for sure, although I don't know how many actually answered the prompt properly. There weren't a lot of excuses in here, a lot of people owning it, but not a lot of excuses. I hope you enjoyed the video regardless though, and I also hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one.